Hello, I am so happy to introduce my friend and colleague, Reverend Lahronda Welch Little. Lahronda, thank you so much for taking some time away from your busyness with your family. There's a lot going on when we're all in quarantine together, and educating children at home, and a lot going on with the work that you're doing as a student and in the graduate division of religion at Emory. I know you're wrapping up your final semester for coursework, and you've been doing some exciting writing, it sounds like, which I'm looking forward to hearing more about later on down the road, if not in this one interview. You are a certified candidate for elders orders in the United Methodist Church and in the North Georgia Conference here. And you have been very active and busy leading some discussions and webinars and workshops around spirituality and health, particularly with clergy in mind. So I'm hoping you're going to speak to some of that. We're ready to hear what you have to say about self-care in particular. I just did want to say that you're doing your dissertation work with Professor Emmanuel Larity, who also is in this series of interviews. And I like the word soteriology, so I'm going to use it in the introduction with you. You say you study holistic soteriology, which means something to do with salvation.
Yes.
And you are, another way of saying that is you're studying pastoral theology and spiritual care. So with that, I'm going to ask you, what has God put on your heart to say today?
Well, first of all, Melissa, Dr. Sexton, thank you so very much for the opportunity to share a little bit of what's been on my mind. This present age that we're in has presented some interesting and deeply meaningful opportunities to situate the work that I've already been doing. So yes,
Mm-hmm.
I study holistic salvation or holistic soteriology. And in that endeavor, I seek to frame salvation as not only just about the soul, it is that,
Mm-hmm.
but it is also about salvation for the particularity of salvation, because all of us require salvation in particular ways. I'm also thinking about salvation for the environment and salvation for world systems. So
Right.
it's a salvation as a cosmological endeavor rather than just a narrow individual thing. And in this way, this is also how I'm thinking about self-care. Self-care,
Okay.
so the move in this cosmological, inclusive way of thinking. Self-care is not only about the self. There are dimensions of self-care, which is kind of what I want to talk about today. So self-care isn't, okay, let me just back up. This is not a to-do list. We have plenty of those.
Right.
We have plenty of how-tos. So this is not that.
Right.
It's more of a reframing and a shift in consciousnness. So in that way, self-care, right. So self-care does not mean that I no longer am caring for you, right? Self-care does not mean that I am somehow outside of the community. That's not what that means. Self-care actually means that I am a part of a whole, and in order for the whole to be well, I have to do my part. And so there are three dimensions to that. And the first, and please stop me at any time. So the
You're
first
doing
dimension.
great. I want to hear about dimensions. Can I just tell you this, though? There's another interview, actually, that I did with a man named Carlos Salinas about the shamans in Amazon. And I hope you'll get to look at that, because this concentric kind of cosmological shifting is something that he's learning from that. So I'm just seeing this kind of convergence. So anyway, you said there's 3 dimensions. So I'd like to hear how you're framing that.
Absolutely. And the indigenous traditions have so much to teach us, in this. So the first dimension is intrapersonal self-care. Intra, meaning I'm taking care of myself physically, mentally, and spiritually, right? So this is how I'm interacting with myself. Interpersonal means how am I engaging others as I take care of myself? And that also means that I remain in communication with my spiritual director, or my mental health care provider, or my pastor. Pastors need a pastor. Everybody needs someone to walk alongside them and support, right? And then the third dimension is the communal aspect of self-care. And this particular age of COVID-19, when I go out in the community, am I wearing my mask?
Yep.
Am I wearing my gloves? Am I maintaining social distancing? Because in so doing, yes, I'm taking care of myself, but I'm also looking out for the community's well-being. How many stories have we heard where in good faith people are in churches, and then all of a sudden the whole community is ill? So self-care is deeply significant, right, in this time. So self-care in this way, I suggest, is a spiritual practice. Self-care is a spiritual practice, and that is by practicing self-care, I honor the divine in myself. I honor the divine in you, the God of all creation. I am honoring by taking care of myself.
So that's really beautiful. And I don't know why we have, I'm going to name it, okay? It could be that white supremacy at its core has to do with this more disconnected, dis-ease, and I mean dis like in not at ease, dis-ease with being connected. And we've got to make a mental, emotional, spiritual shift for the sake of all.
That's absolutely.
I don't know if that's what I'm hearing you say, that self-care now means care for a whole, or that's not a word, a whole creation.
That's absolutely right. And if we fool ourselves if we think that we are individuals. We are not.
Right.
Nor have we ever been. We're individuals, but we're not individualistic. I cannot do something for myself or to myself and not think that it won't affect the people around me. And think that it won't have some other type of effect in the community. It's just not. It's not possible.
Mm-hmm. And so the holistic.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I was
just going to say. So we're joining our communication together as if we're trying to be one here. This is a performance piece.
It's all good. We're saying the same thing.
But I want to listen to you. So self-care as a spiritual practice. Can you say something about that? Like, how does that
Sure.
play out? What does that look like?
I'll give an example. Spiritual practices, most people, when people think of a spiritual practice, they think of prayers. They might think of meditation. These are all spiritual practices. So when I take care of myself and I'm honoring that which is divine within me, by whatever I do, if I eat good food, if I take 30 minutes to meditate, then it's going to align me in a particular way, right? You feel good when you eat good food. You feel good when you exercise. You're more relaxed when you meditate and you breathe. You breathe.
Right.
And then when I am aligned in my mind, my body, and in my spirit and my soul, when I connect with you, or when I see you, when I talk to you, then that is going to have an effect. It's a spiritual practice. It doesn't happen overnight, but the more and more we do it, and the more we develop this consciousness, I believe that half the stuff that we're seeing on the news, the atrocities, among races, the killings, the senseless killings, those things will begin to not happen. I do this in the hope that it will take effect, right? If our leaders were practicing self-care as I'm presenting it, then there would be more of a concern for the community, for the well-being of people. And we would be more inclined to figure out ways to make quarantine more sustainable so that our communities can get well. So that's kind of what I mean.
Good. Yeah. Okay. All right. And that is a word that we all need to hear and get really clear about, that it's not just about me anymore. No. As if it was.
If it ever was.
But we have an opportunity now, right? We have an opportunity now to sort of get a new anthropology in place.
Yeah.
Right?
And I think, Melissa, people are afraid of that.
Yeah. I think you're right.
I think people are afraid of going within and really understanding themselves and understanding themselves as a part of a global community. People here, especially in the United States, it's just not a practice that we as a whole do enough of.
Yeah, you're right. I thank you for these words to ponder and words of wisdom. And I'm excited about the work you're doing and the ways that you are imparting knowledge and practicing self-care as you care, especially for other faith leaders, and helping to teach and inform that their leadership matters more expansively than maybe we've imagined before. We are having to reimagine a lot. So is there one word of encouragement you would say to any pastoral faith leader out there that would maybe be a sustaining message of hope?
Do not take yourself for granted. The work that we do as clergy persons is deeply meaningful, but not so meaningful that we can neglect the care of the self. Yeah.
That's good.
Take care of yourself.
Reverend Lahronda Welch Little, thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you.